Welcome everyone to the inaugural Albany Film Festival presented by the New York State Writers Institute at the University of Albany. We're excited to have you here. We hope this film festival helps foster the local filmmaking community and maybe inspires the next generation of filmmakers. Who knows if the next Jordan Peele is out there today. We're really honored. All right, man, give a wave. It's really nice to have this collaboration. Our moderator is Shira Segal. She is on the faculty at the University of Albany. She teaches film studies. She works with a lot of student filmmakers. And our featured guest, Glen Trotiner, is a University of Albany alumnus. And this workshop, there's no one better to lead this workshop. It's So You Want a Career in Film. You know, Glen has had more than a 30-year career in film. He's done it all: producer, screenwriter, director. He's won awards. He's acclaimed. He's got a lot of advice. And he's also helped some of our students and alumni from the University of Albany get into the film industry. So we're really excited. You know, this happens because really generous people like Shira and Glen and our staff at the Writers Institute, our team, Jen Kowalski and so many others, give up their time on a Saturday. This is all volunteer. It's also made possible by our sponsors. You can see them all on our website, albanyfilmfestival.org. I would really strongly encourage you to look there. We have a lot of offerings there. And also right now, tonight, and for the next 3 nights through Monday night, we have the first ever in this region projection mapping show on our campus on the entire exterior of the Science Library. We premiered it last night. It's really exciting. It's free and open. It's a public art display. We do ask that you sign up, face masks, social distancing, the usual COVID requirements. But if you sign up at albanyfilmfestival.org and come see this amazing show, we'd love that as well. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to Shira and we'll get started. But thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Paul and everyone at the Albany Film Festival. I'm so thrilled to welcome back to our now virtual campus, Glen Trotiner. It's such a delight always to have you with us. So just to get us started, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. You'll talk to us. For those of you who have questions for Glen, go ahead and put them in the chat while you think of them, and I will loop back to you and maybe even call on you if you don't mind. But if you don't want to be called on, I will read your questions for you happily. So Glen, like Paul said, you are the perfect person for this type of workshop. I'm curious what got you interested in film, but also how you got involved in the business professionally and some of the roles that you've played on set over the past couple of decades.
I'll give you the short story version of the sordid tale of how I got from Albany to sitting in my cave in Manhattan. But first of all, hello, everybody. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for the time on a Saturday. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to do this kind of thing in person. I feel like you lose a little something on the web, but hopefully we'll make this as productive for everyone. But as far as my own story, when I was at Albany, I did like a bunch of different things. I was on the radio station. I performed in theater. I spent a lot of time at the movies. And one of the reasons why I really like coming back to campus and coming up to the area is because I always get these great flashbacks of sitting in the movies at the campus center and going to the mall and sort of paying for one movie and then staying all day and watching 3 or 4 more. So movies that to me have great meaning, but I obviously realized that I'll sound a little long in the tooth if I talk about all of those movies. So we'll try to move into a more contemporary setting, I think, in what we kind of talk about here. So, but I've always been a storyteller, and I've always been interested in stories, whether or not they were classic black and white films or the movies that sort of come out and we talk about today. I watched the Oscars the other night, and I have my disagreements with things, but it's always fun to kind of see people paying attention to the movie business because it's in the people that I work with in my heart. I've always been really attracted to this. And I just didn't really know how to get to a career in show business. I grew up in the Bronx. My parents were teachers, and it just wasn't something that like seemed attainable. But I did figure out ultimately how to get here is just kind of a little of a circuitous route. So my crack in the door was the Directors Guild of America training program, which still exists in the modern age. It's just the application process is a little different, and you know how you kind of get placed and go through the program is a little different. But essentially, the way it worked, you know, when I got in, and the way it works now is it's an application, and you get letters of recommendation, and then there's a test, which when I took it was verbal, math, spatial relations, something called the Minnesota Multiphasic personality test, which is something that they gave in the service, which basically asked you the same question 200 different times to see whether or not your answer would be consistent. And I guess afterwards they graded it all. And there were, you know, several hundred people, I think, that took the test, and it got cut down to maybe 25% of the people that took the test moved on to the next phase. And the next phase was role playing in front of a bunch of people that I think were psychologists. But anyway, they had us do a bunch of role playing, which was, it felt to me like a modern day reality competition. It was like, okay, there's 10 of you, but the lifeboat only fits 6 of you, and there's only food enough for 2 of you. And okay, now what? And well, anyway, you know, we went through this role playing, and I wasn't sure how I did, and so that got cut down from 25 people to, or I guess maybe it was, yeah, it was about say 25 to 50 people. Got cut down to 12. So, and at that point, I knew that out of 12, they picked 6. So I was thinking to myself, I got a 50-50 chance. I came from hundreds, and I got a 50-50 chance. So I was pretty like excited about getting to this point. And then that point was a one-on-one, not one-on-one, but 1-on-12. 12. So it looked like your, you know, movie where people are all sitting around the table staring at you. And so just me facing these people that were like all in the industry, and some, you know, some were producers, some were assistant directors. And so basically what I had learned at this point was that this was a program that was choosing people to have entry level into the Directors Guild, which was, you know, to start at the low rung, you know, in the assistant director path. And then you basically could go anywhere from there. You know, you could, like, some people would become producers, and some people would become directors, and some people would become studio executives. And, you know, so I had my interview, and, you know, they asked me questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I answered them, and I did the best that I could. And I tried to seem as, you know, the least nervous that I could possibly feel. And that was it. And, you know, the mail was used in those days because there was no internet. And I got a letter, and I got in. So there were basically 2 components. They would place you on in production on movies and television shows. And then there were internships that you would do at equipment houses, and, you know, and the mayor's office of permitting. And so I did an internship, which everybody did as part of it, in the training program office. And while I was in the training program office, 3 people walked in one day, and I had no idea who any of them were. But one, it turned out, was Sidney Lumet, the director, and one was his producer, Kenny Ott, who was the producer of Silence of the Lamb and won Best Picture Oscar for that. But that hadn't happened yet, so I didn't recognize him. And then, you know, a guy who was probably very similar in age to me, who was applying to get in. But there are basically 2 tracks of getting into the Directors Guild on this entry level, which is you go through the
Talk to you about money matters. I never have, and I'm not going to start now.
I'm sorry, Liz.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not going to let it drop that easily.
Oh, sorry.
Large sums of
I
money
have
been
YouTube.
withdrawn.
Anyway, so I was like, who's that? So anyway, so these 3 people come in, and it's one guy who is trying to get in. So basically you have the way I got in, which is through the training program, and then there's an experience roster that can get you in. So if you have a certain amount of days in production, you get to, you know, get potential admittance into the Directors Guild. So comes in, we fill out everything, they leave, I'm going through his application materials like I did with everyone else who walked in, and I realized he hadn't signed it. So I get up and I walk across the hall and I walk into Sidney Lumet's office, which happened to be right across the hall from the training program. And I showed him the, sign here. And I don't know what it was about me, but a few days later, I had found out that Kenny Ott, the producer, had asked if I could be the DGA trainee on their movie. So, right place, right time. I guess, that was as easy as, you could imagine. But I never kind of forgot the idea of being in the right place at the right time. So you can kind of sense those moments when they happen sometimes. And you just be like, okay, I'm going to like try to figure out how to not be unmemorable at this occasion. So not that I was thinking that way at that point, but whatever I did got me the, training assignment. So I started as DGA trainee on this movie. And basically what they did was they put me in charge of things that a lot of trainees get put in charge of, which is taking care of the talent, which is called first team, and also doing all the paperwork, because nobody ever wants to do that. It's like the least fun thing to do in production. So, I would do the timesheets and I would do the production report and all. And I also, would stay with the actors and put them through hair and makeup and wardrobe and, make sure that they were in the right clothes and they got to the set and they got lunch and they got their cards at the end of the day. And so the first day of shooting on Power is, that was the name of the movie, was at LaGuardia Airport. And it was Richard Gere and Julie Christie. So after they go through hair and makeup, I radioed, we all have walkie-talkies to make us look very cool when you're working in production. I radioed down to the set that, we were ready to go. And a few minutes later, they radioed back, bring the actors down. So Julie Christie, as I recall, was very independent, and I don't think she needed to be walked to and from places. But Richard Gere liked to be escorted, and he liked, to make sure that people were like, no autographs, no this, no that. So I have my walkie-talkie, and it's the first time I'm in. It's day one on the movie, and I'm in this really enclosed space. And the walkie-talkie, I don't have one of those Burger King headsets at this point. I'm like the low man on totem pole, so I didn't get all the great equipment. And my walkie-talkie is open, and the first AD is asking, versus this director, is asking on the radio, "Are you with Richard?" And I'm in this crowded elevator and with him and all of these like non-coms. And so, we're trying to like turn the volume down and be really low. Yes, I am. And he comes over with this big booming German accent, like, superseding any volume control, like, "Are you with Richard?" And I go, "Yes, I am." "Are you in the elevator?" "Yes, we're in the elevator." "Are you on the way to set?" And so, and Richard Gere is just getting madder and madder at me as the time goes on. So when we get to the, elevator opens, we get out onto the, baggage claim where we were shooting, and he's like, "Get yourself a headset." And so I guess I could tell you the best thing, A, no open radios, and B, don't call them by their real names. Call them by their character names or figure something out, because like, it's not, the actors don't like that, and rightly so. So, but anyway, so that was my first day on an actual movie. And that kind of gives you an idea of, my first mistake, which I kind of beat myself up on, but I did manage to get on, through the movie, and I did manage to get on other jobs. And I worked with a lot of different assistant directors and production managers and producers and directors over the 2 years. So I got to be mentored by a bunch of different people. And one of my favorite ADs, assistant directors, was Bobby Girolami. He was the first AD on Brighton Beach Memoirs and Critical Condition, which were two of the other movies that I did when I was in the training program. And he had this thing where he wanted everybody in the department to always be clean shaven. So one day I was so tired, and I had been working like, trying to keep up with all of the stuff that they throw at you. And I just kept trying to keep taking on more stuff to do. And he took one look at me and he's like, "Turn around, go back and shave." But that was his idea, was that we were all professionals, and we should, obviously like think of ourselves as professionals. So, and the entire time that I'm thinking to myself, shave, I'd rather have the extra 10 minutes of sleep. But I guess he didn't see it quite the same way I did. But and then so when I got towards the end of the training program, I was on this television series called The Equalizer, which is the same TV series that Queen Latifah does now, except this was the iteration of decades ago. And I, at this point, was, pretty decent at the training. And I had learned to take on as much responsibility as I could, because that's a big part of, like, make sure that you're learning as much as you can, and, showing them that you can, handle whatever they give you. So by the time the end of the week came, on Friday night, Saturday morning, sometimes by the time we wrapped, I was pretty tired. So I go back to the production office with like all the packages and paperwork and everything that they give you. And I always look at these big plush chairs that are sitting in the office. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to close my eyes for a couple of minutes. And then I fall asleep. And now it's probably about 3 o'clock in the morning, and the phone starts ringing in the production office. This is one of these things with a handset that you pick up and put to your ear, that I think you probably all seen them in movies. But anyway, so it's ringing, and I'm like, I'm not picking that up. That's going to be like a crew member at a bar that's like, they forgot something. And so I go back to sleep. And then like 15 minutes later, the phone rings again and rings again. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let it go. Not going to, whatever it is, can't be that important. I get back to my apartment, and my phone answering machine has like a dozen messages on it. And I'm like, I'm not that popular, so this has got to be something. So I play back the messages, and it turns out that the second assistant director, who had been on The Equalizer, and who actually sort of didn't hate me, had left to go on a movie in Chicago. And when he had left, I was like, maybe they'll, promote me into his job, but, it didn't happen. So I was like, all right, so, I'm a trainee on this movie and on this TV show, and I'll be on this for a couple of months, and, and I'll have an income, and, this might go to, the spring, and I might be fine. But anyway, fate wasn't going to play that way with me, because basically what the second assistant director was calling about was for me to come and be another assistant director on this movie that he was doing. And he was like, but they needed me to start, like, this was Friday night, they wanted me to start on Tuesday. So it turns out that I figured out how to do it. I joined the DGA, the Directors Guild of America. I packed, I did all this, I trained my replacement, and I flew to Chicago, and I wound up doing the Untouchables for the next, I guess, 4 or 5 months. And, so I had been a trainee like on Friday, and the second assistant director on Tuesday. And I was probably like scared out of my mind, but trying not to give too much up. And then one of the other assistant directors, because it's a big movie and there are a few of us, says to me, it's the same job you were doing, you're just getting paid for it now. And it sort of like relaxed me, and in a way that like I was all like, what do I do now? What do I do now? How do I do this? And the other thing was, I was in a new place, like on a new movie where like 2 people knew me. Like, as far as they knew, I was the second assistant director. They didn't know that I was basically getting coffee and giving people messages and stuff up until 2 days, 3 days earlier. I was in charge, which was big step for, from the trainee to the second AD. It's like all of a sudden you're a boss rather than a worker. Even though it's the same thing, they listen to you. They don't be like, oh, well, I'm going to talk to somebody about this. They have to actually like listen to what you say. So anyway, so I'm on the movie, and I'm learning my craft. The things that you're constantly learning, even after all these years, you're still learning. One of the things that I used to do which is still a second assistant director job, is you give out the new script pages. So at one point, when I first started, the script, which was written by David Mamet, had the movie end with a chase in a train in the 1930s, which I thought was fascinating. But I guess they priced it out and figured that they didn't want to spend all the money on this. So it got rewritten for tunnels underneath the streets of Chicago. And then a few days later, I heard that it was going to be on the steps of the train station in Chicago. There were no pages. There was nothing. It was basically, we had this tiny little like ground plan that Brian De Palma, who was directing the movie, had kind of given some notes, and there was this ground plan of like, this guy goes here and he gets killed first, and this guy goes here and he gets killed second, and this guy. And then the gun gets thrown from here to here, and then the baby carriage goes down the steps, and 7 days later we're done. And that was it. So basically, one of the iconic scenes from a movie that's been made in the past half century or so is, you know, basically winged it in a lot of ways. You know, that was kind of my, you know, intro to being in the DGA, and I just kind of kept working and working and working and trying to like be the best, you know, person at this that I could possibly be. And I got on a bunch of big movies, and I don't think I took a day off for like a really long time. And then in the summer, I was on a movie called Last Exit to Brooklyn. So I was a second assistant director, which is basically the background assistant director. You stay on the set, you set the background, you make sure that like everybody's there. And then you have the key second assistant director, which is a step above in the hierarchy, and that person is planning the next step. So they do this thing called the call sheet, which is a blueprint of the next day's work. And then you have the first assistant director, who's basically standing next to the director the entire time and like, you know, making sure that everything on the movie is happening correctly, with the thought of, you know, potentially moving into that job someday. So anyway, we were shooting this riot scene where we had 1,000, maybe 1,200 extras. And so it was like a really long time every day processing them. And that, you know, that sort of fell into like what I was doing. And I wasn't so like integrally involved in the set by set moments, but you know, we were shooting the scene and it was pretty big, and I was down on the ground, you know, dressed as one of them. So if I got caught in the shot, I would look like I was a striker in the, you know, 1950s. And I look up and, you know, I see where the, you know, main camera is placed on this granary bridge. It was the old Domino sugar factory in Red Hook, which isn't there anymore. But, you know, I'm counting the people that are on the, because, you know, I mean, safety is, you know, big, important part of our job. So counting the people, and I'm like, okay, the director, the cameraman, the assistant cameraman is up there, and oh wait, that's the producer. He's up there too. And I'm thinking to myself, that place that collapses. That's like, you know, probably not really made for people to stand on. There was this like microphone system that we had to be able to talk to this like throngs of people that were placed various places in the street. I did not have one of these microphones. The key second had one. You know, during this riot scene, we, you know, it was like all hands on deck, and the first assistant director had one. And while I'm setting, you know, people to like, you know, be in their riot mode, I turn to the sound of my name, and it's the first assistant director, and he takes his microphone and he pins it on me, and he's like, "Here, you talk to the people." Now, you know, talk to the people means, you know, talking to the entire Red Hook street, you know, but I'm like thinking to myself, like, well, where is he going to the restroom? Like, what's the story with this? And turns out he had gotten into an argument with the producer about safety on the granary, and he was off the movie. So whether or not he quit or he got, you know, fired, I don't know, different sides of the story. But anyway, it was right for him to say something. But he did say that me and the key second assistant director, who was now the first assistant director, should stay on the movie. So not only did we have to finish this day, had to finish the film, and we, you know, had gotten quickly elevated into. So this is how like I went from being a, you know, sort of like a lower level person who just set background to, you know, and move people around to, you know, being a, you know, kind of a bigger decision maker, figuring out the next day. And then I'm thinking to myself around 2 o'clock in the morning that, oh my God, I got to do the call sheet for tomorrow. Like, this is my job. So somehow it all got done, and, you know, finished the movie, and, you know, now it's key second assistant done, you know, much more movies. When I was a second, I did a movie called Cookie, which was directed by Susan Seidelman. And she asked me to be the first assistant director on the follow-up film she did, which was Shira, which created a sound throughout the business that you could not possibly imagine, because they're like, he's not a first assistant. Like, where'd he come? And I guess, you know, I had stood next to her at the monitor when we were doing, you know, Cookie. I had, you know, she asked for something, I got it for her. I was quiet. I, you know, did whatever they asked me to do. I, you know, kept the movie moving along. And, you know, I guess I made an impression on her for, you know, whatever reason. Or she called every other first AD in the business, and none of them were available. But anyway, so that's how, you know, that's how I moved up to, you know, to first AD. And, you know, I did a lot of movies over the years as an AD. some ones that some of you, might have seen. I did a lot of the romantic comedies for a while, and I did a lot of kid movies for a while, and it's like sort of itching to produce. Like years before, I had this like dream of producing movies, and I figured I'd get there. It's just like everything else, like the opportunity had to open itself up, and it did for me on a movie called Radio Inside, which we shot in South Beach. And the curious thing about this movie and the other movie that kind of gave me the opportunity to produce early on, which was a movie called I Love You Not. And they're tied together in a very interesting way because I had done some assistant directing in between the two films, but I had met my writing partner on the first movie, Radio Inside. And during one of these long lulls that sometimes you'll get, in the business, the two of us wrote a screenplay that we sold to Warner Brothers during the second movie, during I Love You Not. So the kind of the moral to this story for everybody who's like, thinking about like a career and what do I do? And what if I'm pigeonholed, or, like, what if I choose the wrong thing? It's like, it's never instead of. You want to write, you want to produce, you want to direct, you want to like be an assistant director, you want to be a prop person, whatever you want to do. It's like you do it in addition to. It's not instead of, but it's in addition to. And I've gone like in between the crafts. When I was working on TV series, I wrote another screenplay called Overnight Sensation, and I was working on the TV series Oz, and I directed the film, like sort of, in conjunction with, working on the series, because, I was able to like use some of the trucks and the gear and some of the actors who are in my movie. So, it's like you get your chance, like it comes, and you figure it out. And writing is a very good way to kind of like move yourself along into what they call above the line versus below the line. Above the line is all the people you see in the front credits, to make it easier. And then below the line is everybody else that's in the crawl at the end. And you can, easily move yourself above the line by either directing something. Now you can do it like with an iPhone and a program on a computer. It wasn't that so easy when I started out. You had to take the film to the lab. So anyway, the encouraging thing is like, just go out and do it. Like, don't be afraid. I was never like outwardly afraid, or tried not to be, even though I was oftentimes shaking in my boots, like during certain circumstances. But I think you guys,
Glenn, so many of your stories almost seem like luck or happenstance, right place, right time. You happen to answer the phone in the middle of the night. And I wonder if you could just talk a little bit more about, like, is it really that simple as just showing up and being present and being available and being competent and kind, right? Like, what's the role of kindness here? And then another just quick follow-up question is, of all the various roles that you've had, some of them have included like Bodyguard to Roseanne Barr. Like, can you tell us about that and what that was like as well?
So just keep me on track and making sure I answer all those like little questions. So the story of, so when I was the first dating on She-Devil, Roseanne Barr needed like company, I guess is probably the best way to put it. She, so like, one time very specifically, the situation was we were shooting at the South Street Seaport, and I went to lunch with her, which was, I think, like 9 o'clock at night. We probably had like a 3 o'clock call or something. I had a lunch with her, and, there's little tricks to eating with, people who are like sort of recognizable, where you like go in the back in the corner and they face the other way. And so anyway, but when we come out, we're swarmed by paparazzis. So, I got in an argument with one of the paparazzi. I was like, can't you like leave us alone? Well, there was no leaving us alone. You can't argue with it. But anyway, so the pictures that this guy takes of me looking as angry as I possibly could probably muster up are in the National Star, like a week later. Roseanne's Bodyguard battles with photographers. Like, do I look like I could be anyone's bodyguard? I mean, it was crazy, but afterwards, my grandmother thought that's what I did for a living, that I was Roseanne's bodyguard. So, so that's a good like behind the scenes of She-Devil. What else did you ask me? Right place, right time. Yeah, very important to show up, and very important to pay attention. like I've been in the room sometimes where I'm like, I don't really think it's appropriate for me to be in here while they're having this conversation. But, you know, it's already like it's gotten too far too fast. So you just try to like be there to understand what's going on and then be available to like fix the problem if there's a problem. And another thing of right place, right time, or, you know, just being, you know, sort of like a charmed life situation is just be prepared to like, if when the opportunity comes, if you get like, you know, the star breaks the leg and you got to go on stage, like just be ready. Like think all the time of like, okay, if I was directing this movie, where would I put the actors? How would I block this? Where would, you know, like, not because you think you're better, but because like the director could get sick, and has happened to me on multiple occasions that the director has gotten sick and the producers have been like, you got to keep shooting. And I'd be like, okay, if it's okay with the studio and it's okay with the Directors Guild, like, fine, we'll keep going. But I didn't come to work that day prepared to direct the movie. I came to work that day prepared to like, you know, keep the crew quiet and, you know, make sure that everybody we needed came. So, you know, that's what, just make sure that you're always thinking and paying attention, and no matter how tired you are, because you will be. I am all the time.
I do see a question from Paul. Do you want to voice your question? Because I actually think it would be a wonderful way to transition to talking about those different roles and how to prepare for those different roles and the demanding lifestyle of being on set.
Sure, Glenn. Shira, but Glenn, I mean, your stories are amazing, but for this workshop, I recognize some of the people on it. Some of them are more advanced in their filmmaking career, but I think we have a lot of students. What practical steps would you suggest they take right now to improve their chances to get into that Directors Guild apprenticeship program? You know, just kind of really practical things that they can be working on, because I'm sure, do you have a sense of how many applications they get? I'm sure it's highly competitive.
I mean, yeah, it's competitive. You know, there's the East Coast version and the West Coast version. It's not the only way to get into production, and it's not the only way to get into the crafts. I mean, you know, there's people that get in and do all kinds of things and then kind of move around laterally once they're in. But as far as the Directors Guild, we got a little screwed up by the COVID situation this year as to the timetable. But normally what happens is applications are available in the fall, and the test is given in the early spring, and the whole, I hate to say weeding out, but the competitive process of it takes place over the course of the spring, and a class is usually admitted in the summer, because the TV schedule used to be, you know, the shows would start shooting in like July. So as far as preparing, is like, you know, it's been a long time since I went, you know, through this process. But I would say, like, you know, talk to people that are in production. There's lots of people when you go by the set, you know, talk to the PAs, if there's a DGA trainee, talk to them, you know, reach out. Most people are pretty findable on Facebook, or, you know, even going to the DGA website where you can get people's contact information. A lot of people publish their information. I do. So, you know, just learn as much as you can. You know, the test evolves. It's not the same every year. But the basic structure of, if you want to get in the DGA training program, is, you know, you take the test, which used to have an essay component. I'm not sure that it does anymore, but which is like, you know, to show that you could think through production. And then get great letters of recommendation, because they are looked at. And you know, if you get as far as the one-on-one interviews, just know what the craft is. Like, I can't believe how little I knew in the period in which I started in the business, like about how production worked, or about like the steps, you know, up the ranks. I feel like the more you know and the more intelligent, the more likely the risk gets taken on somebody than taking a risk on somebody that would be a deer in the headlights. But look, I got in, and I, you know, certainly know Albert Einstein, and I got on the training for it. It's entirely possible to get in, and more people get in now because there's just more work. You know, there used to be 3 networks, and now there's 20 with Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, and you know, so there's a lot of content being created, and a lot of it is union content. And what I would say is, you know, just learn what it is, because like once you're committed, you know, it's like going to school. It's like, well, I'm going to graduate next year, and you know, like in those moments, it's kind of like the way it is in the business. It's like, well, another year I will be able to probably be able to do this, you know. So just be sure that it's right. It's not right for everybody. Not right for everybody.
Mhm.
It's right for me, but you know, I've seen a lot of people that get started and they probably should have thought it out a little bit better. But I wouldn't give up a day of this. You know, it's like I think I've said a popular quote of mine that I hear back all the time is your best days in the film business and your worst days are in the film business, and they're usually the same day. That's very true. Like you could have a horrible morning and you could be the superstar of the department. The director could love you by, you know, 30 o'clock in the afternoon, where you made what you think is a career-ending mistake, you know, 10 o'clock in the morning. So like, just keep going. You know, there's too much going on all the time to like worry about like some mistake you made at 9 o'clock in the morning. So
Thank you. I know Shira has many more questions coming up, so thank you, Glenn.
oh, sure.
Excellent.
Thank you for this
Excellent.
opportunity. Awesome.
And we actually are getting a lot of questions from the students and the attendees. And before we do that shift, I just was hoping to ask you a contextualizing question having to do, because you've worked on so many different types of films, so many different types of budgets, from Independence Day and Captain America to Big Time Adolescence or The Phone Booth or Big Daddy, like all of these, the range of films. Could you briefly help us understand what it's like to work on a studio production versus an independent film with a smaller budget? And do you have a preference for one or the other? And I think I know the answer.
I mean, you know, I'll do both, and I really like there's aspects of both, working on bigger budget things and, you know, working on smaller independent things. The smaller independent things, a lot of times people just really want to get this particular thing done. It's a passion for the people that are often working on them, and you can a lot of times feel that passion when you're doing these things. They have much shorter shooting schedules, much less money. Everything has to be done very quickly. There's no actress won't come out of the trailer till lunchtime situation, and you know, usually on a smaller movie, because like you can't lose a half a day of shooting and recover. So what I would say is the money's better, you know, working on the bigger projects, obviously, and people have heard of the movies usually if you do something like that, than if you do a indie that you think is great, and it probably is, but just didn't find a distribution source that got it out there in front of people. You know, I have a bunch of movies streaming right now, and like, you know, people watch them, I think, because they're like, well, what have you worked on lately? And I mean, well, I did this and it's on Hulu, and I did this and it's on Netflix, and I did it. And then, you know, they watch them and they're like, well, that movie's kind of decent, you know, and you're like, yeah, you know, but you know, when you look at the Netflix screen, you just see like a lot of thumbnails, like you don't know what to click on. So, you know, a couple of times when things have trended, like Braven trended for a while on Netflix, and I think Hulu was the home on the Hulu home screen, had Big Time Adolescence on the home screen for a little while. So, you know, I mean, the best part of any movie, be it the studio film versus the independent film, is knowing that it finds an audience, and that, you know, people are like getting a chance to watch it and maybe laugh at it or cry or be inspired or, you know, something. You know, the studio films are like, you know, I know in some cases, some of those movies, people are watching them, you know, 50 years from now. It's harder with an indie to make something that like is that resonant, that it stays, you know, they're usually very like autobiographical, topical things that the writer director. Whereas with one of the Marvel movies or something, like people, you know, could be watching that movie like, you know, after we're not all part of the planet anymore. So
yeah,
I guess there's more longevity and that kind of thing.
right, right. I do want to give a chance for folks to ask their own questions. I know Benjamin Mislow, if you're still online, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question directly.
Hello, so I am Benjamin Mislow. I'm also from the Bronx. I have been PAing since I was 19 years old. I'm currently 22 now. I have also done some AC stuff. I do PA work on the bigger budgets, where bigger budget shoots where you don't really have as much freedom, versus on smaller budget shoots, I've actually directed actors and whatnot and done AC work before. So I've never had an internship before. I've already, I don't want to sound cocky and say I have my foot in the door, but how do I kind of go from, what's my next move? Because I've been doing PA work for years. I don't want to be known in the industry as just a PA. I want to get out of that. And the people I've spoken to on all the different sets have told me many different things. They say, oh, you should work in a warehouse where all the camera gear is so you can study it.
I mean, there's no pat answer to anything like this. I guess you have to have like kind of an idea of what gets you up in the morning every day, like what excites you, and then like target that as like a goal. So if you're thinking about directing, you know, or you're thinking about being a DP, you know, cinematographer, then like you gotta kind of like figure out how to get the map from, you know, your game board has to get from one place to the other. And it's not going to be a straight and narrow route because we all have to make a living and we all have to like learn and you know, meet people and whatnot. But if you wanted to go into production after you get 600 days, you know, and if you wanted to do that, just get on the qualifications list. Like, you know, it's really easy to go to the internet or ask people about it. And then you would be qualified to, you know, take an AD job if an AD job came. If you want to go into camera, I think working in one of the equipment houses isn't a bad idea because you get to meet all the ACs. And then if they, you know, like you or they remember you, which you know, is something you have to figure out how to do that. Then when a job opens, a camera trainee, or they put on another camera for the day or whatnot, they're like, hey, wait a minute, that guy that helped us with the checkout, you know, I wonder what he's doing. And, you know, I mean, chances are like once you're on set there, if you're doing a good job, they're like, well, just come back tomorrow or we'll see you on the next one, you know. So it's like figuring out how to get the opportunity to do what it is that you like as a craft is a step, because you could do anything. Like there's like so many jobs and there's so many ways in. Just like focus on something that like gets you to being excited about what it is that you're getting to do. Like with me, I just like doing so many different things that like, I was like, yeah, I could write or I could act or I could, you know, you just got to like hone it in a little bit. And production was that for me.
So because I already have, I'd say, a very nice amount of experience for such a young person, should I, because you said the Directors Guild likes people with more experience than not, do you think I should shoot for it? Because
Why wouldn't you, like, first of all, there's no reason not to fill out the application, take the test. Like if you think that it's the process is too long, if you think it's a goal for you, you know, then go through the goal. And at the same time that you do that, you'll be doing the research on how some of the other avenues of getting off of the PA, you know, a lot of people stay PAs for a lot of years. There's nothing wrong with being a PA, by the way, you know, and you get to meet a lot of people and exposed to a lot of things. But if you're looking to actively move yourself up, there are ways of getting to move up. You know, you could, like, there are people who do camera that didn't have like any experience, you know, until they worked at the equipment house or until they became the camera trainee on a project. So it's like people who want to write. I always tell them, just get a job in the writer's room at there's like 50 television shows in town. Somebody's getting coffee for all those writers on every one of those shows, you know. So like, you know, it's just like getting yourself into the position. The right place, right time thing is, you know, we engineer that right place, right time by like following the steps to get ourselves into that place. But I would say, like, you know, first keep working. Like, don't feel being a PA is lowly and degrading. This is a good way in, and it's a good way to be like, okay, what does the art department do? Do I like this? You know, what does the camera department do? Do I like that? Because, you know, in the bigger movies, there could be 300 people doing things, and like I'm constantly looking for people who just want to drive, you know, but while they're driving somebody that they're talking to. You know, you understand, like, and they're getting that knowledge and getting that relationship. You know,
well, that actually connects us to.
I hope I did.
Oh, sorry. That actually connects us to two other questions. Thanks so much, Benjamin. That connects us to two other questions that I see in the chat, both from Alvin, and one of them has to do with how many different jobs are on the movie set and what's the hierarchy of performance. But Alvin, do you want to ask your second question as well? Oh, you got to unmute. 1 sec.
Yeah. So my second question is, because I need to know if you need to be handy with a camera to at least get your foot into the door of knowing the terminologies behind being a director, because that's what I'm lacking, is hands-on experience with a camera. So.
Well, first, you go out and experiment. You know, you can do it with your iPhone or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, go out and experiment. Like there's a lot of rules to filmmaking that, you know, you either can learn by like watching a lot of films or, you know, going out, you know, and actually making films, you know, telling stories. So I would just say, you know, go out and experiment and try to figure out like what works and what doesn't. Like, I can't believe the amount of places that there are to show stuff now. You know, that like you used to, not that many years ago, have to get an agent to look at your material to like, you know, get an opportunity to, you know, be a professional director. Like now you could have a YouTube channel and have like 1 million views and, you know, transition in that way. So, but I would say there's just so much to just actually going out and doing it and not getting scared of like thinking you don't know anything, because you pick it up. Like you pick up like things like screen direction, you pick it up, wide, tight, you know, whether or not when you cut from something, does it cut to the next thing? Like, you know, those are things, and learning the equipment, like all the camera rental places, all the equipment rental places all need people to like help carry boxes, you know, and you really learn like I did an internship at one of those places and I didn't know what the difference between any of the heads or any of the, you know, the like this light is this and this light, you know, you learn it and then you don't seem like a, you know, complete nincompoop when you step like, can you like just go to the left of that apple box and, you know, and you're like, well, what's an apple box? You don't want that to be you know, so like learning that kind of stuff. But I mean, you don't need that many people to make something now. You need a good script, a camera, and a couple of actors, you know, and you know, just go out and do it. And, you know, I want to watch you on the Oscars in like 5 years.
Oh, thank you. Another question I have, is it easier or is it unrealistic for a studio production or a movie company to pick up not only your script, but actually have you direct it?
Is that unreasonable? If you've written a great script, one of the things that gets on the blacklist or something like that, you know, that like gets passed around by all the agents is like, this is like the greatest script ever. You probably have a good chance of directing the script because everybody will be wanting that script. You know, I mean, it happens that, you know, that somebody like comes out of nowhere and writes something great and all, you know, goes, you know, all the way to the Academy Awards. But no, so it's not unreasonable, but you should, if writing is something that's like in your blood and you really have the energy and the drive to, you know, get up every morning and write those pages, just write the best thing. Like, you know, go through 20 drafts before you even think you're halfway there. And just
make yourself viable.
Got to. I mean, it's very competitive, but it's not so competitive that people don't get in all the time. Stuff is getting made every day. You know, so it's coming from somewhere, you know, and we're just going to see an explosion of more content. It's going to get more rather than less as it gets, you know, this marketplace gets more competitive, more streaming services are coming online. And so there's plenty of opportunities. And then go out and like meet people who do it and listen to their stories. So, I mean, I'm trying to give you guys all like a little thumbnail about how it worked for me. But like my story took place like in the age before the internet and in the age like before there were, you know, 200 networks. You know, there was very limited opportunity. And then there was the explosion of the independent film and, you know, things had really opened up opportunities. And also budgets have come down quite a bit. So you make the, you know, the same, it's the same movie for $20,000, $2 million, $200 million. It's essentially the same movie if the story is good, unless you're blowing up stuff. You know, it really is. It's the same thing. It's the same, you know, the story's the same. So you don't get scared away by any of that. You'd be like, let me tell a really good, powerful story about a powerful character going through something that somebody hasn't seen before. And then, you know, make it great. You know, and you know, like I'm not the world's greatest writer, but at the couple times that I've gotten, you know, the script, you know, to a place where it's a fully realized thing, I've put it through a lot of drafts and I've listened to a lot of people's feedback, you know, but before I gave it to anybody, I really worked on it a lot because nobody will read it. Very few people are going to read it a second time. So you got to get that first read to mean something.
All right.
Did I
answer? All right, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Excellent. Thank you, Alvin. I see a couple of questions in the chat, and Greg, maybe you could voice them if you have audio and if you want, about how necessary is film school, how to get your foot in the door, what are some of the ways that folks can get exposed to the industry if they're really brand new and aren't sure how to go about securing a production assistantship, for instance.
Right.
So Greg, do you have audio today? I'm not sure if you do. Let's see, he's working on it.
Okay. So
is it working?
Yes.
It is working? Oh, okay. So I don't remember exactly what my question was word for word, but when you complete like a regular degree program, like say for example, like I'm minoring in film studies, so it's kind of like giving me a little bit of an idea of what goes on. If you're able to, you know, get your foot in the door afterwards, is it possible to learn, you know, through experience the same kind of things that you would learn if you were to go to film school instead, like after graduating?
Well, I don't want any of the professors that are on this workshop to be mad at me for saying this, but I think that you could be successful whether or not you have the formal education or you just did it by practical. Each one augments the other, so there's benefits to both things. But practical experience doing anything is going to, it's like a picture's worth 1,000 words kind of idea. Practical experience is incredibly valuable, not only because of the learning, the hands-on learning, but also because you're doing it usually with people that do it for a living. And those people are going to kind of innately impart to you what it is that helped them be able to put food on the table every day. So I would think that like the formal education that you seem to be talking about is very valuable. And I wish I knew more about some of the film theory things when I started out, because I did not get a degree in film. But get on a set as much as you can at the same time. And then the things that you learn on set will cause you to ask questions in a more academic environment sometimes, and be like, okay, I need to understand screen direction better, or I need to understand, you know, the wide type, medium cowboy, long shot. Like I need to understand these things better. And some of you will probably understand these things a lot, because it sounds like there's people on here that have had some experience or have been around the, you know, the craft for a while. But I would say I can't stress enough the practical value of getting out and getting in the field. And even if it's to work for free for a couple of days and just, you know, be around it, a lot of times that will lead to getting a chance to do more. And there's no way that anybody that is willing to work hard doesn't make it in the business anymore. I've just not seen the statistics of the washout. I've seen people that like show up every day and pay attention, doing pretty well pretty quickly, because there's just so much going on. You don't get rich anymore. Very few people get rich doing this. This is not something you do for the money. You do it because you want to tell stories. So did I answer your question? I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. Great. Thanks, Greg. We have just a couple minutes left, but I see two different questions from Micah, if Micah wants to be unmuted and ask them. Both of them having to do with the difference of roles. So what's it like to transition from being an AD to being a producer? And Micah, do you want to ask your second question about producing and how to go about it?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, what advice would you have for people who are new to producing, especially a budgeted project? What should they be doing? How can they make themselves valuable on set?
I always think of like these sorts of things, like the producer, the production manager, production in general, as hole pluggers. So there's no textbook that says like, okay, if this goes wrong, you do this. You have to be aware enough to see what the problem is and then jump in. There are so many times that no one told me, oh my God, we need to like put script pages, the colored script pages in the script. I just knew that if the actor had the wrong pages, I was going to, you know, get, you know, broom handle. So I didn't want to like ever do that. So I would, be in that position. So I would always like look around and see like, how can I make this go smoother? What's a problem that's going to happen? How can I stop that problem from happening? And a lot of that is just producing, is just being like one step ahead, in the chess game all day long. And, and also just being able to like diffuse the situations. So if you see something about to get out of hand, you find your way to kind of like, well, how can I like get the movie back on track? Is it through humor? Is it, through, trying to change the subject, trying to like, just to kind of avoid things from going off the rails. A lot of times producers are just keeping the train running smoothly. And the best times that it's going to be working on the times that you're doing the least, because that means everything's working. So don't feel bad if, you're like, wait, I can sit down and have a cup of coffee, because that means that, chances are the train is running on time. So, but I would say like, look around, anticipate the problems, be friend to everybody, know everybody's name, make sure that they know that you're there to help, that they like you enough to help you, instead of like want you to fail. You want people to want you to succeed, not fail. So the best producers are the ones that have the crew and the cast in their corner, because if they don't, they're just going to be left hung out to dry. So cool. Did I answer you had another question?
No, I think that kind of answers both of them, because my other question was, what is it like transitioning between ADing and producing? So it sounds like it's kind of the same thing, except you're not really dealing with the extras like you were before.
Being a second AD, being a first AD, being a production manager, being a producer, being a director, they're all very similar. It's just, and I used to say that it's just like how much of a moving target you are. Like it's or a different kind of moving target. Like when you're a second AD, like, probably one of the worst things you could do is stand in front of the camera. But when you're a first AD, one of the worst things that you could probably do is not getting the day's work. And when you're a director, not getting the, the scene to ring true. Like, but they're all kind of interrelated in like making sure that the production is functioning and the story is being told correctly. And then just being able to kind of, understand what it is that the other people are giving to the equation, because you want to make sure it's all working in sync. So whether or not you're the second AD or you're the director or you're the first AD or the production manager, everyone else has to be kind of like on the same page, to use the cliche, because if not, then you're going to spend a lot of time kind of putting it back to the way that it should be, and you don't want it to be like that. So you want to make sure your particular spot in the overall production, thrust of production is working, and thinking of how you can help that other person that's in that production zone make sure their part's working too. Like a lot of times I would make sure that the actors had a safe space, if I was, no matter where I was, so that the director could get the best work out of the director, get the people off the set, no talking, and so you just like make sure everybody else can really do their jobs, and then that you're aware of what everyone else is doing and what their jobs are. It's all the.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Micah. So we are at 3 o'clock, but I think we have a couple more minutes for some closing sage advice. 2 questions. What's the best piece of advice you can give someone breaking in? And what was the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Okay. Well, I mean, the practical things are, as far as a piece of advice is like, the days are really long. You could be out in really cold weather. You could be out in really hot weather. You'll be on your feet a lot. Like just comfortable clothes is like a really like thing that's overlooked. So that, but I would say probably the best thing for anybody, all of us, is just really know the script. Like I remember one time, like somebody in the story, I can't remember what movie this was, where they were shot at some point in the story, but they lived past the shooting. And so there were scenes that took place prior to and then post when they were shot. So, we were sitting around one day and we were talking about, a bunch of people in on production, sitting around, we were trying to figure something out. And I was like, that wouldn't work because that scene, he hasn't been shot, and that scene he has been shot. And so, somebody else turned to me and he goes, how do you know that? I mean, because I know exactly like what's in the script, and when things, happen in what order? If we would change something on a movie, in the middle of the day, because it would start to rain, or somebody wouldn't show up on time, or any one of a number of B and C plans that you have to have like rolling in your head all the time. We'd say, all right, the director would say, like, let's jump into the scene where this happens, and I'd be like, we need the dog. The dog's in that scene, because I know the script so well that I would immediately focus on whatever elements that were needed. So I would say, like, really know the script will help you so much. What was the second question?
What was the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Best that anybody ever gave me. Geez, I've gotten so. I guess Mike Haley, who was the first AD on BILOXI BLUES, left me on set one day, and was like, "Here, you run the set." He did this to people a lot. I was not second. I was second assistant director, second assistant director, I think, on the movie. And he's like, and then all of a sudden, all the assistant directors. This is Mike Nichols' movie. All of a sudden, all the people on in production just like leave me there to run the set. We were lighting and we were getting ready, and a lot of things happened that I didn't expect. But I also wasn't thinking of all the things to get ready. I was thinking of, like, are the actors in hair and makeup, and like, people getting ready for the next scene, and what time's lunch coming, but before he walked away, he gave me like a really excellent piece of advice. Always ask yourself, why aren't we shooting? And that will answer so many things for you. Is it lighting? Is it because the actor's not ready yet? Is it because, they're trying to figure out the line? Is it a rehearsal? Is it blocking? Are they putting the marks down? So I would say, like, that solves probably 99% of production problems, just asking that one question. Why aren't we shooting right now?
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Well, I'm so grateful for your wisdom and all the wealth of experience that you bring to the table, your willingness to come and to talk with us at the Albany Film Festival and with the students. I think for me, I've seen you, you've come to campus a couple of times now. This is a unique circumstance that we're doing it by Zoom, but I'm always so appreciative of all of your energy and willingness to kind of share with us all the things that you've learned along the way and some advice for us going forward. So thank you so much for that. The last thing that you said about not just being one thing, I always think in addition to rather than instead of, I think that's such wonderful advice for all of us, no matter what we're doing, is to kind of expand how we are existing in the world. And then the other piece of advice that I'm taking away today is pay attention and be involved and be present and be ready to respond. And that gets you a lot.
Very true. Very,
yeah, excellent.
And the other thing is, sort of innately, like, for everybody here, is like, I didn't come from a nepotistic situation. Like, we didn't really know, like, a lot of people in the film business. I don't think I ever met anybody in the film business until I was, well past teenage years. And one thing that, I think if you could come in, like, basically off the street, and just go to, school, like everyone else is there, and, like, wind up, look, I'm not an Oscar winner, but I've had a career and I've done, like, some good work, and, and still having fun at it. So it's entirely possible to get from where anybody is at school to get to, sit in the cave in Manhattan. And entirely possible to get here.
Well, thank you for your optimism and encouragement. Paul, do you have any last words for us?
I always really want to thank our UAlbany faculty member in film studies, Shira Segal, for moderating this, for doing a great job getting everybody's questions on chat and a chance to ask the questions. Glen Trotiner, the best representative of our university. You're so humble, you're so authentic, tell amazing stories. And the fact that all these people showed up on a sunny Saturday afternoon is a good reminder of what you're telling them. Work hard, be willing to take whatever job you can get your foot in the door. You gave a lot of good practical advice. We're really grateful. This was a wonderful workshop. We're so happy to have you part of the Albany Film Festival. You can go to albanyfilmfestival.org, learn more about and see more great conversations with filmmakers. And if you're in the area tonight, tomorrow night, and Monday night, the amazing projection mapping show on the side of the Science Library in the UAlbany campus, just sign up for it at albanyfilmfestival.org. thanks so much, Shira and Glenn. This was wonderful.
No, and thank you. And I will say, it's not that hard to find my email address. So if people have follow-up questions, like it might not be immediate response, it's getting a little busier out there in production right now, but I try to answer everything. So, don't think this was the only opportunity to ask questions. I am good about that stuff. And everybody who thinks that it's worth it to apply to the training program or is thinking about it, I made a video with the training program. It's easily watchable on YouTube. I think everybody there has the link, and it explains the whole process and what the job of the assistant director is, and what the possible career path and objectives are. And watch it, and you'll learn about the horror of the past 30 years in 15 minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Glenn.
Bye-bye, guys. Good luck to everybody.